In this video, I'm going to be showing you the U.S. military's modular sleep system. This particular style that you see right now is the older style that was issued from around the mid-90s to up around 2010 or so. A few years before 2010 is when they started issuing out the improved version of this that had the ACU cover. From what I've heard, the ACU one has thinner or lighter bags inside. But this is the one that you're going to find the most on the market. Prices you can find these for typically between $60 to $100. Condition will obviously determine the price. If you're looking for new in the bag, unissued, you're probably looking up at that $80 to $100 range, possibly even more. If you're willing to get a used one, you're looking between $60 to $80. You can get this system in its individual parts in case you do not want the full system. Now, be advised, if you do go the used route, make sure to check the bag out as thoroughly as possible, especially if you go to a surplus store. You want to check the snaps, like here. You want to check both sides of the snaps, the inside and the outside. You also want to check your zippers. You want to check for tears inside the bag. And it also helps to look to see if there's been any repairs done to it. Now, with the Gore-Tex cover, a lot of those will have small holes in them and small rips. They can be repaired fairly easily. There is Gore-Tex repair kits out there. They don't cost much. Much meaning it's going to be $5 to $10 for the kit. And it should come with enough material inside the kit that you can repair multiple holes. I thought the bag, the Bivvy cover I had on this one, was one of them I had to repair, so I was going to show you what the repairs should look like, but this one apparently doesn't. It's one of the few that doesn't in my pile of spares. But when you put the patch over the hole, over the rip, you want the edge of the patch material to be at least a ½ inch away from the end of the rip, away from the hole. And you also want to round the edges. You don't want the sharp edges on it, the sharp 90 degrees, because those are easier for getting snagged on stuff and getting ripped off. Other than that, follow the instructions that it should be on the package with the repair kit. They're pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. Now, this right now is set up for spring summer use. So we have our Gore-Tex Bivvy cover and our patrol bag. Now, I've heard that the patrol bag supposedly is good down to around 50 to as low as 30 degrees. But I really do not know if I believe that. I'd say 50 is probably pushing it. 30, you're definitely pushing it. But once fall starts coming around, you're going to want to put the entire system together and start using that. Now, the other parts of the system here, you have your black extreme cold weather bag, and you also have your stuff sack or compression sack. This particular one is the older style. I do have one of the newer style compression sacks that I will show later in the video here. Now, this is one of the best sleeping bags I ever used in the military. When I started out, I was using the old M1950 Mummy Bag. and I will try doing a video on that sometime before the end of winter. There's just a few things I want to get a hold of first for the bag that I have. That itself was part of a set years ago, but they stopped issuing them as full sets. And that's a separate video on that one. But when you get to fall, if you don't have your bag together at all times, I carry mine as a complete set at all times. But let's say you pulled the cold weather bag out for over the summer months to save on weight, and you cached it with other cold weather gear. Now, on the sleeping bag parts itself, the inner parts, there is a label. This label gives you the instructions for the care and cleaning of each piece. This label goes on the outside. A lot of people screw that up. The black part goes inside the green patrol bag. Now, how I do it, I take it, shove my arm up in it, like so, grab the sleeping bag, and feed it down into the end, grab it, throw it out. You then line it up. Line up your zippers, line up all your snaps, all your buttons. This is a used one, so it is missing a few. But start snapping them together. Now you can leave one side open like this in case you get too warm inside here during the night. You want to go a little bit cooler. Otherwise, if it's definitely winter time, snap both sides together. And then you would feed your hoods together. Now when you would use this in the field, the actual bag like this, I would not use the snaps and hook the snaps together, because that'll take you longer to get out of the bag in an emergency. So I would just use the zipper here on the bivvy cover to close it up when you're inside. Now during the winter months, you're trying to stay warmer. Make sure to plant your head inside the hood here, and you got drawstrings here on the extreme cold bag and on the patrol bag. You can cinch those up to close it in around your head. If you're still getting cold with your head being in there like that, you can wear a cap, a ski cap, watch cap, whatever you have available. I would not wear a face mask. Now, if it's really cold out and you want to cover up completely, and I do not recommend it because you're trapping moisture inside the bag, you can pull this up over your head. But if you do that, I would turn to the side and have your face pointed towards the zipper, and then have this opened up just a little bit so you have a hole so that your breath comes out. I'll throw this out there: never ever put your head completely inside the sleeping bag, because you're going to be trapping a lot of moisture from your breath inside the bag, and it'll get more and more wet through the night, more and more damp. Now, this system is designed to wick moisture away from the body. When it does that, the stuff that comes up to the top will naturally get pulled out into the cold, dry air. Underneath, it starts to collect on the underside of your Gore-Tex Bivvy cover and over whatever you're sleeping on. Now, I highly recommend, always, even during warm weather months, sleep on top of a sleeping mat like this. Or you can use one of the insulated ones, one of the civilian ones. They all work about the same. In cold weather regions like Alaska and also overseas, they issue inflatable sleeping mats, which are, you can puff up to over twice the size of this, twice the thickness of the old style foam mats. Now, before you pack this stuff up in the morning, make sure to dry it out just a little bit, okay? At a minimum, flip this over for a few minutes so that all the moisture that collects on the bottom of your bag can get pulled away by the air and dry it out. Now, some things on improving this system if it gets that cold. First off, if you're inside here and it's still not warm enough for you, let's say we're getting way below zero, this thing's supposed to be rated for around 10 below zero, maybe a max of 20 below, but I really would not go too much below 10 below zero. You can use an additional blanket or your poncho liner inside. Now, you should always have a poncho liner with you regardless of the time of year inside your rucksack or your salt pack. So you'll just take it out, you'll spread it out inside the bag, kind of like a taco, and you're the filling that goes in on the inside of it. So then when you would close the bag, you know, you would pull the flap over of the poncho liner over the top of you also. You can also use a wool blanket if you want to, but that's going to weigh a lot more than your poncho liner. Now, for cold weather, what I was taught in my initial cold weather training, which was a very long time ago, but it's something I taught over the years also when I conducted cold weather training. You want to sleep as close to the ground as you can if you're out in the open. If you're inside a tent and stuff like that, you're okay sleeping on a cot, sleeping on top of crates or whatever. But if you're out in the open, you want to sleep down close to the ground. You don't want to sleep in a hammock, swinging back and forth above the ground. You don't want to sleep on top of a cot raised, you know, a foot off the ground or 2 foot off the ground. Because then you're going to have air and wind is going to be moving underneath you. It's going to suck out heat, not just from the top of your body, but from underneath. Even if you're using a sleeping mat, you're still going to be losing some heat. So we were taught sleep as close to the ground as possible, but not directly on the ground. At a minimum, you should be using your sleeping mat. Now, as you're sleeping through the night, your sleeping mat's still going to be transferring heat to the ground. And if you're sleeping on top of snow, that snow can melt and turn to ice. So you do run the possibility that in the morning, you can wake up, start getting your stuff packed up for the day, and your sleeping mat will freeze to the ground. One way you can get around that is putting pine branches underneath, or piles of leaves, or piles of dry grass. You want dry material. Give yourself a few inches between the snow and your mat. That's additional insulation to help you preserve heat inside your body, inside your sleeping bag through the night, And when you get up in the morning, hopefully your stuff won't be freezing to the ground. Now you can, if you absolutely have to, you don't have a sleeping mat because you lost it or whatever, you can put down a nice bed of pine boughs on the ground and put your sleeping bag on top of that. But I wouldn't do that except in emergency purposes, because you have the possibility that those needles after a while will start poking holes in the Gore-Tex cover of your bag. So then you lose that waterproof barrier there. And then when you're sleeping down on the ground, you're melting snow through the night, it'll start coming through the holes, start soaking your bag, it's going to come through to you, it's going to pull out more heat through your body. You're going to freeze quicker and increase your chances of frostbite. Now, sleeping inside the bag. I'll mention this. In a combat situation, you still want to keep your clothes on as much as possible. Do not wear your boots inside your sleeping bag. The main reason for it is your boots are going to be wet. They're going to be muddy. You start putting those boots inside your sleeping bag, you're going to be making the inside of your bag dirty. You're going to be getting that wet as the snow and whatever melts off your boots. Also, you want your feet to dry out during the night. And they're not going to dry out if you're wearing boots. You can wear your socks while you're in the bag at night. I recommend doing that. Even then, you know, your socks will dry out, your feet will dry out through the night, the moisture will just get pulled out by the sleeping bag and it will get passed out to the air. Now what I did in the morning when I would wake up, that would be when I would put on a fresh pair of socks, fresh t-shirt, fresh pair of drawers. Because your stuff's going to get a little bit of damp during the night. You are going to perspire, you are going to sweat a little bit during the night. So you don't want to put on your fresh stuff then. You wait till in the morning. When you're inside the bag, what I would do, I would take off my uniform top if I was wearing it. I would roll it up and I would shove it up in here and use it as my pillow. Now, the pants, you unbuckle them, you pull your pants down to a little bit past your knees, or at least the level of your knees. You want to expose as much of your body to the sleeping bag as possible so that you don't get too warm. Your body doesn't adjust to sleeping inside the bag with your uniform still on, because when you wake up in the morning, you're going to freeze. When you wake up in the morning, you open up your bag, you want to be a little bit cold, you don't want to be super cold. So, and if something happens, as we were taught in basic training, if something happens during the night, with having your pants, your uniform pants and that down around your knees, shots are fired, you just reach down, grab your belt, grab the top of your pants, pull them up quick, you cinch them up in that, you sit up, open up your bag, grab your top, you put that on, and then you toss on your boots. What to do with your boots? What we used to do, what I did, is I would set my boots right here, and I would put my helmet over the top. That way the boots are here, they're drying out next to me, I can grab them quickly if something happens. Now, your weapon. Some people would sleep with them inside the sleeping bag. I do not recommend that, because your weapon is going to heat up then, and then when you pull it out during the night or in the morning, you're going to be taking warm metal, putting it in a cold environment. It's going to frost up really quickly. That frost is going to turn to ice and your weapon's going to seize up. One of the things they taught us years ago, take your weapon, no magazine in it, no round in the chamber. Definitely no round in the chamber, because if you have that, you're going to have a round that's going to freeze inside the chamber, and then when it tries to extract it, it's going to rip the head off. You're going to have the casing still stuck in there and you're not going to be able to use your weapon. But so clear your weapon, no round in the chamber. I would not leave a magazine in, because you still run the same problem. You might have a magazine that'll freeze inside the mag well. Take it, put it under the edge of your sleeping bag, the edge of your sleeping mat, face it downward, the barrel towards your feet, your dust cover facing up, and you just overlap your sleeping bag over the night. Your body is going to be over here, this is going to be next to your body, so this is not going to get as much moisture on it from the bag as if compared to if you're sleeping on it. I know in Scandinavian countries what they do with their weapons, they'll leave them sitting out up against racks, either outside the tent covered with a tarp or right at the entrance of a tent or shelter. But if you're out in the open and that stuff, you can just put it right under the edge here, cover it up, keep it somewhat protected. When you get up in the morning, you get your uniform and that stuff on, pull your weapon out, cycle it a few times to try to bust up any ice that may have formed inside, which hopefully there shouldn't be much. Cycle it maybe a half dozen times before you put in your magazine and chamber around. But I would still wait a bit before chambering around. I might put the magazine in, but I wouldn't put a round in until this weapon has cooled off quite a bit. Because it'll still be warmer than the environment it's in. Now for putting it inside your stuff sack. One way you can do it is you can roll it and put it inside, and if you roll it from the foot to the head. Before you would roll it, you go through, zip it up, at least on the bivvy cover. Now if you're just stuffing it inside, same thing. Zip it up, start at the feet and feed it inside. When you get to the end here, make sure that the bivvy cover is pulled over the top to cover up all the insulating layers of your sleeping bag before you close it up. Now, this is one of the newer style cinch sacks or compression sacks. We still got our long straps going all the way around it, and we also have 3 or some even 4. I think I've seen a couple that I have that have 4 of these straps here in the middle. Now when you put it inside here, the first ones that you're going to cinch up will be these ones in the middle. Then you're going to go through and do the ones on the outside. When you start pulling the slack out of the long ones on the outside, do it like you're putting on a tire on a car. You go opposites. You do one on one side, then go to the one that's directly opposite to it, and then just keep going back and forth. Always moving to an opposite on the other side. Once you get all the slack out of them, then you can start going through and cinching them all together. Now if you have problems where it starts popping open because of a bad clip like this one, you can take some of your cord here, tie it off on one of these bands up here to keep it from opening up. Now, before you would put it on your rucksack, especially during cold weather months, remember a wet sleeping bag is pretty much guaranteed you're going to end up with a cold weather injury. You're going to want to put it inside a waterproof bag. So what you just do, you get it all cinched up, put it inside, get as much air out as possible, twist off the top, or close off the top, then twist it, then take your 2 strings and go opposite directions. Take one, wrap it 3-4 times going one way, take the other one, wrap it 3-4 times going the other way, and then tie it off. Then you take this whole thing and you strap it to your rucksack. Your sleeping mat, if you're using the USGI one, try to get it as small as possible. What I try to do, I'll take like an inch worth here, bend it over on the end, and then start rolling it as tight as possible. And then once you get to the outside, well, as you get close to it, make sure that you don't accidentally roll up your straps, your ties inside the sleeping mat. So every once in a while you're going to have to keep pulling those out as you're rolling more. And then when you get to the outside, hold it together using your legs, pull the straps tight and tie them off. And then this can get strapped to your rucksack also. That's the basics on it, on how to use your modular sleep system, especially in cold weather. I highly recommend this system. It's one of the best that there is out there, that's the most economical. There are better systems than this. You know, there are systems that were designed for the Arctic, for high in the mountains and that stuff. But you're going to be looking at spending a couple hundred for one of those bags, where this one will at least be below 100. Now, if you got any questions on this, I may have missed something, I'm sure I did. Just put it in the comments, I'll try answering the question, or if I don't know the answer right away, I'll see if I can find the answer for you and then give it to you. For all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember, essayons.